The carriage is waiting. Will Gladys go to the station with you? Or might it be best to get the sobbing done first?
I think Gladys should decide where she wants to say goodbye. Don't you agree, Hector?
I certainly do.
Welcome back, y'all. We are here for episode 6 of season 3, The Gilded Age. Let's talk about this episode. Now, that was the Bertha we need to see. That's the Bertha we know and love, the one who comes in and gets everybody together. We haven't been feeling her for the last couple of episodes, or at least I haven't, because of the way she treated Gladys, but she may have redeemed herself for this, slightly redeemed herself for this. Now, she's still got to fix all her issues with George when she gets back home, but for now, I think she's left Gladys in a good place. She has taught her some things, left her with some life skills, and I think Gladys is going to be okay. Let's talk about it. So the show starts with Bertha arriving in England to see Gladys. We know last week it left off with George receiving a letter from Gladys and telling Bertha that she was unhappy and that he knew that was going to happen, and just expressing all of his anger and frustration with her. It's coupled with some other things. You know, he has all these financial issues, but his frustration with Bertha has been slowly growing. And when he got the letter from Gladys, that was the final straw. So Bertha went across the Atlantic to go and try to resolve and fix this issue. Now, Bertha got a little taste of Lady Sarah when she had that dinner with them the night before the wedding, but she may not have understood how bossy and overly directive she is. She needed to see it firsthand, and she absolutely does. Initially, when she walks in, before she could even put her bags down, Lady Sarah is being bossy, telling her about where she's going to stay, what time dinner is, how long she can take a nap, that her maid will be coming later. I mean, she's just laying down the law initially. And this is really good for Bertha to see what her daughter has been enduring all of this time.
Sad to see that you had dismissed Gladys's maid.
Wasn't that always the plan?
Well, yes, I know. It's just seeing her so far from home.
But her home is here now. Her new maid understands these houses and the people who live in them. Don't you want Gladys to have help adjusting to her new life?
Of course I do.
And what did you mean? That I don't know how to run things?
It was at this moment that Bertha realized what she was dealing with and how she needed to handle Lady Sarah. And specifically how she needed to equip Gladys to do it. And we'll talk about it a little bit later, but I expected Bertha to come in and fight Gladys's battles, essentially. To tell Lady Sarah about herself, to insist that the Duke make this a comfortable environment for Gladys. But what she really did was, I mean, she needled Lady Sarah a little bit. She gave her the business, but her main purpose was to provide Gladys with the tools that she needed to do it and to assert herself and take her position as the Duchess of the household.
Never says anything, either to defend or attack.
He's a frightened man. You must convince him his welfare is as safe in your hands as it is in hers.
How?
You're not a fool, Gladys. Show an interest in the estate. Show an interest in him. In this setup, you outrank Lady Sarah. Just make sure everyone knows it.
I wish she'd give up on me and go.
The only person to make her go is Hector. That is what you must work on. Your father is a businessman. You know how to manage events.
If I do, I learned it from you, and not from father.
Then put it to good use. Make him love you. Make him value you. That is the answer, but only you can do it. I can't.
This was Bertha's teach a man to fish moment. She could have easily went in there, pressed on the Duke, reminded him how their money is the way that they're keeping their castle up and running. She could have threatened him. There's a ton of things that Bertha could have done, but this was the best way to do it because she knows she's going to leave at some point. And Gladys is going to have to manage this on her own. And there's no guarantee that Bertha's influence is going to maintain after she leaves. So the onus is on Gladys to stand up for herself and to make it be known that she is the lady of this house. And Bertha's 100% correct that has to be done two ways. Number one, putting Sarah in her place and doing it publicly, and convincing Hector, because he's the only one who ultimately has the control. Now, we learn that Hector's parents, their parents have they died when they were young, and he's always looked up to his big sister. She's always handled things. I mean, it makes sense. You know, we see a lot of situations like this where people follow the lead of their older sibling and they acquiesce to them as if they were the parent. However, and if this was modern day times, obviously Sarah would be running the entire show. But back then, you know, she, even though she's the elder sister, she had to take a back seat simply because she was a woman. But the best way to approach this is really to convince Hector, to get him on her side and to have him assert himself, because clearly he doesn't have a lot of experience doing that. Bertha's specific suggestion was that Gladys show an interest in the estate, which she does, and it works. You can see that Hector is pleased to know that she's interested, that she wants to learn more. And one thing Bertha can do is she knows how to manipulate a man. That's one of her strengths. She knows how to use her feminine wiles, and she has this way about her where she's so strategic. She never raises her voice. She never throws a fit. But she makes it very clear what it is she wants, and she does it in such a tone and a way that it often works. And I'm pretty sure that's what she's been doing with George since day one. Now, it's not working anymore because she's made too many missteps and he's also going through something. But this is her strength. This is her sweet spot. So she's able to provide Gladys with the guidance that she needs to do it. And we see throughout the episode that it begins to work slowly but surely.
I thought I'd ask Mr. Forrester to drive me around. Explain about the different tenancies as well as what we farm in hand. I'd like to meet the tenant farmers and their wives.
Well, they'd certainly like to meet you.
What's this?
Gladys is curious about the estate. She's going to get Forrester to explain it all, the tenants, the crops, you know.
Why?
I just want to understand how an English estate works.
Have you put her up to this?
Sarah, Gladys lives here now. She's entitled to be interested.
You could see how proud Bertha is of her. That smile right there. She's like, that's my girl. That's my girl. I wish we had seen more of this before. This is the first time in a long time we're actually seeing the two of them get along. When the show first started, the big thing was Gladys was like on lockdown. She couldn't go to any party. She couldn't do anything. Her mother was like, she hasn't come out yet. You know, it had to be an official coming out event and she hadn't done it yet. So she's just been blocking this girl since day one. And then once the girl got a chance to get out, have a little bit of fun, then she said, you know what, you're getting married and you're moving across the pond. So I'm happy to see the two of them on the same page, that Bertha is showing her daughter some support and that Gladys is looking at her mom as somebody who she can turn to and somebody that she can learn from. So this is a really good moment. And, you know, we have a common enemy here, right? Lady Sarah. So we're all happy to see any moment that Lady Sarah gets a smackdown. Now, speaking of smackdowns, this scene right here, this was golden. Can you imagine how fierce Bertha would be in modern day times? I'm thinking it's giving like CEO, right? CEO or strong female politician, something like that. I mean, the sky's the limit with her because she's smart, she's beautiful, she's crafty, she knows how to use her feminine energy. And you know, I'm saying all these positive things about her and I was hating on her last week. And I'm still not happy because she had to go and fix this situation, but she created it. So it was only right that she goes and resolves her own wrongdoing. But I have to give credit where credit is due. I was truly impressed with her strategies this week. She was extremely tactical, and I believe it's going to be a success. And she's going to be able to go home and tell George that she did, in fact, fix it.
Including women, I hope.
Oh, heavens. Do we have a suffragist among us?
Are you against women voting?
Of course.
Why? I'm curious. Do you find women stupider than men? And not equipped for important decisions?
No. That is, I think women should stick to their proper sphere.
Then should the Queen have stuck to her proper sphere and refused the crown?
Bertha, I think we must go easy on my poor sister.
I was just curious, but of course, if she'd rather not answer.
I think I should not be so impertinent as to have an opinion about our sovereign's decisions.
See what she did there? That was so clever. That was so clever. It was so nice, nasty. And she played her. Like, what is she going to say? You talking out of both sides of your mouth, Lady Sarah. You say that women shouldn't have a vote and that you should believe that important matters should be left to men. Meanwhile, you running this whole estate and you won't let the man who's supposed to be running it do anything without your permission or your oversight. So you just really played yourself in that moment. And the funny part was she knew she played herself. You could see the moment in her head where she was like, damn, I sound stupid. And Gladys's face, the observation of it all, she's watching and she's learning. And the people at the table too, they see it. Hector saw it. You know, he did defend his sister a little bit, which I was surprised about. But she got her all the way together. And that's exactly the way you're supposed to do it. Shoot, real talk, Bertha got me over here taking notes. I could use some of these strategies at the workplace. Now, as good as that was, the best scene of this entire episode is this one right here. This is the moment where Gladys really pulled rank. Literally pulled rank.
Sarah? Are you quite well?
Why shouldn't I be?
I thought, when you stood without waiting for me, you must be ill. I'm so glad if I was wrong. As I was saying, your family must have been farming here for many years.
Places or something.
What was that about?
Why did you stand without waiting for her?
I've always decided when the women go through.
That was before. There was no Duchess then. Now there is one, and you should have waited.
The way I got excited about this scene, I was damn near clapping in my living room. That's how you do it, Gladys. I was impressed with how quickly she came up with that. Because she was about to let Lady Sarah sun her again. And then Bertha gave her that face. And she only had about 30 seconds to come up with something. And that one was exquisite. It was so well done. Even the Duke had to take her side. And then she's left with this dumb face right here. Funny part for me was, did y'all peep how that old boy pushed her chair back in? If you didn't, go back and rewind a little bit. After she stood up and got checked, you could see the moment when he was like, oh, that was premature. Let me get her chair back for her. You just got sunned in front of everybody, not only your guests, but also the servants. I believe this is the moment where Bertha knew that her work here was done. Her daughter has learned the ways, and now she can go back, try to resolve her issues with her husband, and Gladys is going to be just fine, as we see in this next scene.
I'm so proud of the woman you're becoming, Gladys. Just remember who you are.
I love this last shot. I think it's telling a story. We see her standing there in her power, recognizing who she is. She's a different woman now that Bertha has come and left. Even the setup of this, you see the Duke and his sister standing in the back and she's standing center stage, and now she is the Duchess. And I think she's going to do well. I think that Hector now has a new respect for her, as do the others, and Lady Sarah has recognized that her power has diminished. Now, I don't think this is the last time she's going to push back. It's going to take Hector to truly draw a line in the sand for her to fully relinquish this power that she has, but we're on the right track.
Mr. Russell, I believe you know my new partner.
Okay, let's go back over to the United States, and we are at JP Morgan's estate. He has invited all of these men up to his home to come to an agreement. You know, for the last couple of scenes, we've observed how there's this power struggle as they try to take control of the Illinois Railroad line. This is very important to George because he has this grand idea to connect the East and the West and make a lot of money. However, he needs somebody to sell their shares, and they refuse to. Last week, he tried to convince Mr. Merrick to do so. He invited him to dinner. That was a big bust, and that was part of the reason he had to blow up with Bertha, because she was there at the table flirting with the man, and he still didn't get what he needed. So JP Morgan says, hey, let everybody come up to my house, and nobody's going to leave until we come to a decision. Somebody has to own more than 51% because we're all losing money in this game. All the players show up. We see George with his new secretary. We see the Merricks. Was Alfred Merrick and his brother, who he had referenced last week, Mr. Sage, who is a thorn in George's side. And it looks like this is a positive thing until we realize that Clay, who George fired 2 weeks ago, is now working with the enemy, Mr. Sage. I'm a George fan, but at the same time, I mean, you did unceremoniously fire this man just for telling you the truth. You didn't have the foresight to see that he could potentially hurt you in the future, and that's exactly what he's done. Initially, this meeting seems promising for George. George and JP corner Edgar Merrick, and they convince him to sell the shares. And they do this by telling him that he can't trust Sage, and he also promises him that the Merrick family will always have a seat at the table. They push for the deal, and while Merrick is suspicious of George, his disdain and distrust for Sage outweighs that, and they agree to a deal. However, he says he's only going to sign it once they get back in New York, where he can have his attorneys involved. However, Clay, who does know where all the bodies are buried, who's now working with Sage, reveals to him that George is over-leveraged. And he gives him some tidbits that Sage can use to his advantage. Sage does this, and when they get back to New York, he does a little bit of digging, and he reveals that George's business is in financial trouble, and because of that, the Merricks pull out of the deal.
Clay's done this. He and Sage. There are things in the cupboards that only Clay could have known.
For you, sir. Thank you, Jones.
What's happening now?
Shares of Russell Industries are starting to plummet. That's not all. The Merricks are pulling out.
Damn Clay! Damn him to hell! I should have had him killed.
Sure you don't mean that.
Are you? Our two primary banks are teetering on the brink of failure. Everything I've built is on the verge of collapse.
George is having a bad day. George is struggling here. And this is the first time, I believe, that we've seen him so vulnerable. He's always in control. He always seems to have some tricks up his sleeve, some backup plans. And at this point, he's tapped out. He said he's touched on all of his contacts, and nobody wants to share even a shilling with him. And it's not looking good. The one thing I will say about him is I understand he's under a lot of pressure, but when his secretary tells him, you know what, maybe you should sell. Maybe, kind of just mitigate your damages at this point. And George is like, I'd rather let my company burn. That's very short-sighted, and I'm disappointed in him for that. However, we did see a scene where Larry went to those copper mines that they thought were worthless. Come to find out that they're not. So we will see. I think that that's going to be the saving grace for him. And this financial ruin that it looks like he's about to experience is probably going to... it's probably not going to happen. So I'm hopeful that George is just having a bad moment, but I think he's going to rebound.
Come and sit.
It seems I can no longer marry Larry Russell.
Thank goodness.
Agnes. But what has happened?
It turns out I didn't know Larry as well as I thought. It seems on the night we got engaged, he visited a house of ill fame.
What?
Okay, I have a lot of thoughts about this. I've never been a huge Marian fan. I find her dull. I don't feel like her character has a lot of dimension and layers to her. She gives a lot of just goody two shoes. And I know people are going to say, well, it was a different time, and she's probably naive because of how she was raised and lack of exposure, blah, 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 blah. True. But what my problem with Marian is that she doesn't utilize some critical thinking skills. It's okay to be shocked. It's okay for her initial reaction to be upset, to think that her fiance is out, fooling around with prostitutes. But give the man an opportunity to explain himself. To go and just call it off, write a letter, leave it while he's away is just very immature and short-sighted. You could have waited till that man got home and had a conversation with him. Let him explain. And if after he explains himself, it still doesn't make sense to you or it's not good enough, fine, call it off. But to do that so prematurely, it disturbed me. I'm also going to bring Oscar to the stage here because he gave that information reluctantly, but he could have done more to make her feel less. He could have done more to defend Larry. I'll say that. He does not know what Larry did there, true. But he also does know that the Haymarket is not strictly a brothel. There's other things going on. I mean, there's gambling and there's drinks and, fellas watching chicks wrestle and do and whatnot. And we saw firsthand Larry did not sleep with any of those prostitutes. Not saying that he hasn't done it prior, but since they've been engaged, that night he did not do anything. And I think that Oscar could have done a better job of just communicating that to her. Say, hey, listen, it's like a gentleman's club. Some men do fool around, but not all of them do. Larry's a good guy. Give him the benefit of the doubt. And he didn't do any of that. He just sat there with this wide-eyed, dumb look in his face as if he was trying so hard to not tell, right? To not snitch on him. But there's no snitching to be had because he does not know anything that Larry did. But I think what's happening is that Oscar is so distracted by this whole situation with Maud Beaton that he just didn't have it in him to take that on. But yeah, with Marian, I didn't like it at all. And she has this holier than thou thing about her where she doesn't allow for human complexity. And it's very short-sighted and naive. I believe that what makes this show good is that most of the characters have layers. Even those who do seem to be reprehensible, they have some redeeming qualities. Bertha, for instance, while I got in Bertha's ass last week, as you see this week, I'm like, I can recognize that she has some good qualities about her and, what she's driven by, what's her motivation and why she behaves the way she does. Marian just has one note. Just one note. It's just this Pollyanna thing about her and it's just boring and I don't like her. And Larry, I believe, is a good man. And she is really going to regret her decision here, especially given that she already has those 2 strikes against her in society. If she's looking for perfection, she's not going to find it. And I suppose this is where she needs some advice from her aunts. And Ada tried. Ada did say, hey, maybe there's something more to this. Agnes probably would have been the best person because Agnes has a lot more life experience. But because she's so dead set on disliking the Russells, she's just happy that the engagement is called off. But I truly believe that Marian is going to regret this. I don't know that she's going to find a man as good as Larry. He's good looking, he's kind, he's rich, all of those things. I mean, this is a gold mine right here. And she's throwing it up on some naive, immature, short-sighted nonsense. And I just, at this point, I'm like, yo, you get what you get, Marian, because you just keep messing up. You need to do better. All right, let me move on to Peggy real quick. We're continuing with the storyline where she and William Kirkland are courting each other and he's shown a lot of interest, but her mother is going to be the problem. His mother, I should say, is going to be the problem. She has a very big grown woman moment where she tells him about the situation between her and Mr. Fortune. And what I like about it is, number one, she's honest. Number two, she owned her part of it. It would have been very easy for her to make it seem as if he was a predator or she was innocent in this. And she made a point of saying, hey, we both played our parts there. That's a very mature move. And I'm going to highlight, this is a difference between she and Marian. While Peggy is a little sheltered as well. I mean, she grew up with some means, and while, she's a black woman, so she has a different experience. They're about the same age. She's able to process information and think about it critically. She doesn't have that one note that Marian has, and that's what I like about her. There's a certain maturity with her. I like the fact that she told him and that he accepted it. And he said, you know what? We all have a past. Now, she hasn't told him about the baby yet. I don't know how that's going to land. But I do like the fact that she was honest with him and she's starting on a clean slate with this relationship. Now, Dr. Kirkland, I like him and I see what he's trying to do. He's trying to get his mother to warm up to the idea of Peggy. He knows his mom. He knows that she's old school. He knows that she's a colorist and that there's going to be challenges with his relationship. She's very judgmental. She shamed. She has issue with the fact that Peggy's father's a former slave. She doesn't think that that family is good enough. I'm pretty sure she has a problem with Peggy's complexion. And he's trying to warm his mother up to the idea, but I don't know that that's going to work. I believe that Mrs. Kirkland is set in her ways. As we saw when she attended that meeting, that suffrage meeting, she talks more about how she believes that, a woman's place is at home. And that, black women should support the black man's right to vote because they will then support all of their interests. And I just don't understand why he invited her there and did not tell her what it was going to be about. And he did tell Peggy, he's like, well, if I told her, she wouldn't have come. But she came there and she was disruptive and embarrassed. It was embarrassing. She's not the kind of woman to just sit and listen and just, complain about it later. She's going to make her voice known and she's going to, be the fly in the ointment. And that's just not the place that she needed to be. It was not a good look. And he should not have put Peggy in a position where her other guests felt uncomfortable and she felt like she had to do some damage control. One or two things. You either should have told your mother what it was about. She probably would have sat it out, which is fine. Or you should have not invited her at all. There's other ways that he could have done this. But, it could be him being a man and just not knowing how to finesse, woman and not being strategic about it. We see a scene where they are in a carriage later, and what Phylicia Rashad, Mrs. Kirkland, has done now is I guess she realizes, listen, my son is interested in this girl. I can't do nothing about that. What I will do is try to come at it at this different angle. And so she uses this whole she uses Peggy's interests and Peggy's professional ambitions as a knock against her. And she says, well, it's fine that you admire the fact that she's progressive and all these other things, but can she be a good wife for you if she has all these other things going on? Now, it's one thing to admire those traits in a woman, but will you admire those traits in a wife? Is she going to be able to give you the time and energy you need and also be home to raise a family? So she's just trying to plant that seed in his head for him to look at Peggy in a different light and hopefully turn his attention elsewhere.
Oh, he says, esattamente.
Does he? How strange. He couldn't speak Italian. He never learned it.
That's hard to believe of someone called Luca Forte.
He wasn't called Luca. His name was Luke Forte. That was a misprint in the Times. But Oh. None of this is true, is it? You just read his name in the Times.
Mrs. Forte, I assure you
You read the papers, and you asked around, and the rest I've given you myself. Stupid, babbling fool that I am.
All right, real quick, I'm going to touch on Ada's storyline. She finally learns that she's being hustled. This Madam So-and-so apparently read about her deceased husband in the newspaper, and obviously she pulled information from Ada, and that's how she's been hustling her all this time. I'm happy that Ada finally figured it out. I was hopeful that this wasn't a scam. You know, these things typically are, but because we didn't really see a lot of money exchange, I know there was the watch, but it's not like we were seeing her come back week after week and give this woman money. I just assumed that, you know, this was a tool that they were using to slowly allow Ada to get over her husband and to just come out of her mourning. But it turns out that it was a hustle and Agnes was right. But I will say that the positive ending was that she learned about it, and when she went home and she was crying to Agnes, Agnes was very supportive of her, and it was a nice loving moment between the two sisters. Now, I'll be honest, this scene here broke my heart. This made me so sad. I don't know why it affected me this way. I just really adore Jack. I think he's such a sweet young man, and he's smart. They kicked him out. Now, I'm not going to say literally kicked him out, but Agnes obviously had her panties in a bunch about the fact that he had made this money. She was digging around trying to find out how much money it was, and then Mrs. Armstrong, with her ornery ass, she revealed the number, and then Agnes was beside herself to learn that he had $300,000, which clearly is more than they're worth at this point, and she has a problem with it. She urges Ada to kick him out. Of course, Ada doesn't want to do this at first because she's a kind soul, but eventually she agrees and she has a conversation with him and tells him that it's time for him to move on and find his own way in the world. Now, while I understand, I had a conversation with one of my friends and she was like, no, I get it. He needs to, you know, to learn how to fly on his own. Otherwise, he'll just stay there forever and he'll never move on to other things. And I think he will. I mean, we see him already tinkering with the idea of a new invention. But now that I spoke to her, I'm like, yeah, sometimes you do got to push the bird out of the nest. However, I think they could have taken a little more time with this. Now, it was his suggestion to leave the next day, but I think Ada should have said, no, take your time, you know, take a month, a couple of weeks at least to find a new place and get yourself settled. I mean, he did not need to leave the next day. He didn't even have a place to stay. And my concern is because he's so young and naive and he has all this money, he's going to get hustled. And he was safe in that home with people who cared about him and whom he trusted. And you put him out in the streets, it's just a little too soon. I'm hopeful that he lands on his feet. I'm hopeful that he doesn't get scammed out of his money. I'm also hopeful that he and Larry stay in business together, because Larry is savvy and he will not let anybody take advantage of him. However, it can still happen. So, and we also learned that he leaves everybody money. So remember, everybody had given him a little bit of an investment in the beginning for his clock, and he gives them back their money in, you know, several times over. And he even leaves money for Mrs. Armstrong, who never contributed, and also is part of the reason that he's being kicked out, because she's the one who snitched. So it just goes to show how kind of a soul he is and how sweet he is. And I'm just hopeful that Jack does well in the world.
You know, I lost it all. Everything I had. And everything my mother had, too. And now I have to live with her while she blames me for her misery and her ruin. I should break you in pieces.
At least you don't have to sleep with overweight strangers who stink of bad breath and sweat.
We don't care, Maud. We don't care about your plight. We don't care that you're in a whorehouse and that this is what you got to do, because you hustled this man. Now, you got hustled too, possibly. I don't even know if I believe that part, but I'll get to that in a second. But you took this man's fortune, and I'm not going to have sympathy for you because you fell upon bad times, because you were part of the deal. So, miss me with that.
I want to know what happened to the money.
Crowther. You remember Crowther? He was the man behind the whole thing. I was working for him. He took me on to...
To what? To target gullible fools like me?
So Maud, or whatever her real name is, gives him this sob story about how she was taken advantage of too, and how she don't have any family, and how her father had mistreated her, and blah, 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 blah. Cry me a river. I personally don't believe any of that. She's a hustler. She hustled him the first time, and I believe she's hustling him now. I don't know that she's still not working this system. I don't know what maybe she's in there. Maybe she is whoring, but she's also going in these men's wallets and stealing money from them. I mean, that's what they do at the strip club sometimes. It's all a hustle. I don't believe her. And I'm surprised that Oscar has sympathy for her. He has so much sympathy for her that he actually buys her a train ticket so that she can go back home to Ohio where she says her sister is, and he actually gives her money as well. Even she's surprised at how nice and kind he is. And my theory is this. I believe that Oscar is feeling benevolent because John Adams has been benevolent with him. And I have a theory about that, but I'm going to get to that in a second. Because John has pretty much saved him from ruins by investing in him and getting other people to invest in him, I think this is a matter of paying it forward, where it's like, okay, somebody was good to me, so I'm going to be good to her. The Oscar we knew before wouldn't have given a damn about her story, but he's been humbled because he's had this horrible thing happen to him, and that's normal for the human condition. You know, people like him who have been selfish, it takes for them to experience some type of a fall from grace in order for them to be able to extend that grace and compassion towards other people. So that's a good thing for Oscar's personality, but I think it's happening for the wrong reason, because I don't trust John Adams at all. I think I touched on this last week where I was like, all right, something sketchy is going on here. And the more I watch this episode, the more I'm feeling that I'm on the right track with my theory.
I like this new version of Oscar Van Rhijn.
You think I was foolish?
I think you were kind.
I didn't get the money back.
She wasn't to blame, not really. Crowther was the thief, and he tricked her just like he tricked you.
So we're both Crowther's victim,
aren't you?
Yes, you're both Crowther's victims, and he's Crowther. I don't trust him. I personally believe that he is the guy who commissioned old girl to steal Oscar's money. And that's why he's so willing to invest in Oscar, because he's essentially just giving him his money back. What's his motive? Well, obviously we know John and Oscar have a relationship, but given that time, they can't be together. And he does not want Oscar to get married or even to play like he's straight. I don't know what he expects to happen, because they can't have a relationship out in the open. So maybe he just wants Oscar to remain a bachelor and the two of them can just fool-la-la for the rest of their days. I think what he's trying to do is prevent Oscar from moving on. And he did not like the idea of Oscar getting with Maud or any woman, even if it's a farce, for appearance's sake. So what he did was he worked with this woman. Now, I don't know if he worked with her directly or if there was a middleman, but he conspired with her to steal Oscar's money so that he could humble him and put Oscar in a position where Oscar needed him and he could come in and he can save the day. Then Oscar feels indebted to him and he's deeper in love with him, and he probably won't go back out and try to get with another woman, because that's not what John wanted. And he sees how badly that worked out for him. And John can have his cake and he can eat it too. But there's something in the milk ain't clean with this one. And which is why when Oscar first told him that Larry had seen Maud, he discouraged him from going to find her, because he was afraid that if the two of them got together, they might start comparing notes and he would be figured out. And obviously his plan worked, because you could see the look that Oscar had on his face when they were outside of the Union Club. He was enamored, and he even called him his savior. He's completely, utterly in love with this man because he feels like he saved him. That's what John Adams wanted. However, what he didn't expect was that karma was going to come so quick for him.
I'll see you on Tuesday, where I will produce Mr. Hightower for you to charm into becoming your latest lucky client.
You are my savior. I thank you with all my heart.
Proof again that God don't like ugly. He got that instant karma. Good job, Gilded Age. None of us expected this. That totally blew us away. There's speculation as if he committed suicide, because the way he walked out into the street, it almost looked like he knew what was going to happen, or he had resigned himself to it. I don't know why he would have unalived himself. That's yet to be seen, but he's gone. And now we have to wait with bated breath to see how this plays out, how Oscar's going to handle this, and what's going to happen to Oscar's money, because I believe that John Adams had all of it. So I'm going to stop there. This is a long video. It was a lot going on. And let me know what your predictions are for next week, what you thought about this episode. Please do not forget to like, share, subscribe, comment, all those things. And I'll be back next week to review episode 7.